PFC regulation. I'm going to get to this scary slide of common uses. Then we're going to talk about some regulatory information, treatment options, and then PFCs in Florida. Background health and environmental concerns. PFCs are a diverse group of chemicals, and they're used for their capacity to retard fire, repel oil stains in water. They're an environmentally persistent group of organofluorine chemicals. They're extremely stable, that's because of the structure which they're put together, and persistent due to the chemical construct of the PFC compound. And that's that carbon-fluorine connection, which is, according to David Wales, the second strongest organic bond. I have no way of verifying that, but I took his word for it. PFCs have served many purposes, both in industry and consumer product applications. There are some new health advisory levels for both FRWA and PFOS. Different types of scientists may refer to the same class of chemicals by different names, and PFCs are no exception. This is a list of some of the commonly used terms for PFCs you might come across, and they include, I'm not going to read all of those. I will tell you something you may be able to relate to a little closer. Everybody knows what dioxin is, right? Yeah. Who was the big bad boogeyman? Well, dioxin is just the name of a family of dioxin. There's only one real bad boy, and that's the 2378. I can't even remember it all. P-dioxin, dibenzo P-dioxin. That's the bad one. There are about 13 or 14 more dioxins that are out there that are not bad at all. I mean, they're as benign as they can be. But just like PFCs, some are pretty benign, some are not so. EPA studied PFCs due to concerns of high potential for exposure to humans, persistence in the environment, and that's because of that structure of that molecule. It's very, very resilient. The observed toxicity in animal models, and there's insufficient information to properly assess all human health risk at this point. PFCs are found in water, soil, food, air, and human blood. Very soluble in aquatic systems. Low levels found in humans throughout the U.S. population. The half-life of PFCs in the human body can range from 4 months to over 9 years. Basically, after 9 years, you got half of what you had before. It'll take another 9 years to remove another quarter of what you're starting with. It bioaccumulates, and they have known negative effects in laboratory animals, such as abnormal endocrine activity, tumors, organ damage, immune system dysfunction, and reproductive and development problems. PFC can enter groundwater or surface water through water effluent, application of biosolids, landfill leachate, and stormwater runoff. Did I miss an avenue? Based on persistence or composition, PFCs are difficult to remove. The highest point source concentration of PFCs in source waters are associated with the use of firefighting foams and other industrial discharges. This should make you feel very comfortable. Common uses: fabric, carpet stains, water repellents, aqueous firefighting foams, and cookware coatings. I think the three top are bold because those are the three predominant pathways. Waxes and polishes, leather treatment, oil and mining surfactants, pesticides, rubber products, tires, sorry ladies, cosmetic, dental floss. Is anybody feeling uncomfortable at this point? Treated upholstery, metal plating, electronic and computers, waterproof fabrics, thread sealant tape, stone tile, and wood sealants. Treated apparel, food containers, as an example, popcorn bags. Soap and cleaning products, paint coatings, photographic products, and hydraulic fluids. Again, did I miss anything? Regulatory information. In 2009, EPA had set a provisional health effect advisory levels of 0.4 microgram per liter for OA and 0.02 microgram per liter for OS. In May of 2016, EPA issued a combined health advisory level, or a HAL, of 0.071 microgram per liter for total OAOS. The HAL provides levels of OAOS in drinking water at or below which advised health effects are not anticipated to occur over a lifetime of exposure. A HAL does not establish a regulatory MCL. It does provide guidance to assist state, federal, and local officials in evaluating drinking water quality. EPA's 2010-2015 FRWA stewardship program coordinated emissions with emissions reductions of PFCs from 8 large chemical companies. Those were the primary manufacturers of these. And the aim was to reduce about 95% of the OA and long chain PFCs by 2010. I'm not sure if that was fully accomplished, and completely eliminated emissions of long chain PFCs by the end of 2015. And again, I'm not sure if that was accomplished yet or not, but I'm going to give you some additional information where you can keep track of this if you need. Treatment option for removals of PFCs. Removal efficiency of treatment techniques for PFCs from source waters depends on the influent water characteristics, including the total PFC concentration and the treatment method utilized. Conventional treatment methods have proven to be unsuccessful for PFC removal. There are some advanced treatment techniques that can reduce up to 90% or higher. They include active carbon filtration. It is highly effective treatment to remove greater than 90% of both OA and OS species. Anion exchange shown to remove up to 90% of some PFCs. High pressure membrane filtration, of course we're talking about RO and nanofiltration. It can remove up to 90%. Advanced oxidation can remove 10 to 50%. I'm not sure why anyone would to choose that option, but there it is. And again, dissolved air flotation up to 50% removal of some PFCs. In Florida, nationwide, EPA's unregulated contaminant monitoring rule number 3, or the UMCR 3, required all large PWSs and selected 800 small PWSs to monitor for PFCs. Anybody here involved in that program? We have one. Approximately 250 PWSs in Florida monitored under UMCR 3 or UCMR 3. The OAOS was detected in only 12 PWSs in Florida. I guess that's good news. Only 3 of the PWSs in Florida had the OAOS levels above the new HAL. The 3 PWSs have correction action underway. Florida is reviewing existing data and scientific studies. I can tell you one of the first things that we did when we found out what the measure and level of concern was is I called the State Fire Department, the State Fire Marshal's office and said, can you give me a listing of all your training facilities where you may or may not have used firefighting foams? And then once we got that information, then we were able to look at some of the utilities that were within a delineated area close to those and started looking on ourselves. The federal government, through the military, is also looking at their air bases where they use firefighting foams also. So there's a lot of study going on here right now. Looking at both point and non-point sources to identify some of those, as I just indicated. And we are collaborating with states and the EPA. And we're beginning to establish that baseline monitoring database that we're going to need to continue moving forward. This is that website if you want some more update or continued information on what's going on with these 2 compounds. This is where their new health advisory is located and some additional information. And that's the end of that presentation. And if you have some questions, I'll be glad to answer for you the best I possibly can. I've got 2 back there. Yes, sir. What was the acronym? How? Health effect language. Health effect language. Yes, sir. Did you have a question? Does that make you feel good? Did that presentation give you a warm fuzz? I had to read this thing and put it together. And it gave me a bad feeling. I didn't like it at all. I like this kind of.
Thanks, Ken. Actually, the 3 systems in Florida were able to shut down their wells that were affected without any problems for the system. One of them was a well at their location at a fire station, where the fire station practiced with the phone. So they would have known there was a problem, but they were able to shut that well down. All right, we're going to now go into the revised total coliform rule. Joey's already been introduced, but let me introduce him again. We already said that he was going to be the star guest speaker for this afternoon, and since he's only dealing in competition with myself and Ken, I don't think there's any doubt.
Thank you. As you said, I'm Joey Wibbs. I'm from the Pensacola office with the DEP. I started in drinking water back in 2014. And my responsibilities were the monthly operation reports and boil water notices. And back in September of 2016, I turned those responsibilities over to Megan Till. So now you know you deal with her. And I took over with bacteriological compliance from Dave Hines. And today we're going to talk about everybody's favorite total coliform rule, the revised total coliform rule. Let's see if we can learn a little bit. Alrighty, this is a little different than what I was looking at, but our agenda today, we have 5 bullet points there. We're going to do a little overview of the revised total coliform rule, and then we're going to look at the routine sampling requirements, and then when you do actually have a hit, we'll look at the repeat sampling requirements, and then the requirements for monitoring plans, and then everybody's favorite assessment forms, the level 1 and 2 assessment forms. Here we have the EPA rule reference, our DEP rule reference, and basically the RTCR is the only microbial drinking water regulation that applies to all public water systems. The RTCR uses E. coli as an indicator of fecal contamination rather than fecal coliforms. And the RTCR requires public notification when an E. coli MCL violation occurs, which is basically if you fail to conduct, or when an E. coli MCL violation occurs, or a failure to conduct an assessment, a failure to take corrective action based on an assessment, and failure to perform required testing. Here's a little chart that shows you the E. coli MCL violation, what would constitute that. So here at the top we have your routine sample was E. coli positive, followed up by a repeat that was TC positive. You would incur an E. coli MCL violation in that instance, along with an E. coli positive repeat following a TC positive routine, or having E. coli positive routine and failing to take all of the required repeats. And then also a TC positive routine and not analyzing the repeat for E. coli when you have a TC positive hit. Let's see. The RTCR replaced the MCL for total coliform with a treatment technique trigger. And basically under the total coliforms serve as an indicator of a potential pathway of contamination into the distribution system. Here we have the what would constitute a level 1 assessment. So if you're a system that takes less than 40 samples per month or per monitoring period, having 2 total coliform positive distribution samples would constitute a level 1 assessment. So that's including if you had, you have your initial routine sample come back total coliform positive, and you take your 3 repeats, and one of those is TC positive, that would constitute a level 1 assessment. And you see, if you fail to take every required repeat after a TC positive routine, and then if you're one of the bigger systems, you have more than 40 routine samples, having greater than 5% with a hit for that monitoring period. As I was saying, the results of all routine and repeat sampling is included in the determination of whether an assessment is triggered. For a level 2 assessment to be triggered, it basically is when you have one of the following here happen twice within a rolling 12 months. That would constitute a level 2 assessment. So you would not have to do the level 1 assessment again, you would just move to the level 2 assessment, which is a little bit more in depth. It's about 5 pages long on the form, whereas the level 1 assessment is maybe a page and a half. And also, if you have an E. coli MCL violation, you automatically go to a level 2 assessment. In these assessments, level 1 and 2, when you are notified, you have 30 days to complete those and make any necessary corrections. Here are the sampling requirements under RCCR. Let me see this a little better. So as you know, the drinking water system, you must collect routine TC samples at sites that are representative of water quality throughout the entire distribution system, according to your written site, your sampling plan. PWS is collecting more than one routine total coliform sample per month, must collect samples at regular intervals throughout the month. Which one is that? Oh yeah, with exception of PWS is using only groundwater and serving less than or equal to 4,900. Here we have each TC positive routine sample must be tested for E. coli, and that's different because the RTCR uses E. coli as the indicator of fecal contamination rather than fecal coliforms. Also a reminder, you must report each E. coli positive result to the department by the end of the day that you learn of the positive result. That's not obviously the day that it was collected, but from when you hear from the lab that you have that hit. Here's another page of changes from TCR to RTCR. The sampling frequency changed. So previously, systems that were serving 1,000 or less persons were required to take 2 samples per month. That basically dropped down to 1. So there are still, from the routine bacteriological samples that I look at, there are a handful of systems that are sampling more than they are technically required to, and you can go ahead and do that. But if you fall into that category, you could drop down to 1 sample, 1 distribution sample for that monitoring period. The rest of that chart, just you can see based on population, minimum number of samples per month. Ooh, okay. Reduced and annual sampling. This one has come up a little bit more recently. For a non-community, a transient non-community system that has a clean compliance history for at least 12 months and wants to go to annual monitoring, they're required to have meet a number of criteria. One of the things that can happen is if the DEP has been out and conducted a sanitary survey within the past 12 months and it was free of sanitary defects, or all of them have been corrected. That is one of the criteria. So if you meet that, then that's one step closer to annual sampling. And then you see it has a protected water source, meets the DEP construction standards, and has by 12 months of a clean compliance history. That means for your BACT sampling compliance. So you didn't have any hits, you didn't have any public notice requests, and you did not have any assessments triggered then. But the annual sampling is going to go this way, where previously, and I'd sent out an email to all the systems that fall under this category. Under RTCR that took effect April 1st, 2016, all of the annual systems were moved back to quarterly sampling. Now, if they want to request to get onto annual sampling, they have to meet this criteria, send in the formal request, and then we will grant that for 1 calendar year from that date. Then the next year, you would have to go through the same process again to maintain that annual status. It can be a little bit tricky. Also, yeah, that's another thing is, if the DEP has not been out to conduct a sanitary survey within the past 12 months, and there is not one scheduled imminently, the system can choose to do a voluntary level 2 assessment to replace basically the DEP visit, and pending the results of that level 2 assessment, you can be granted annual monitoring. This is the non-community water system sampling quarterly or annually, must take 3 additional routine TC samples during the month following any TC routine sample. I believe John touched on that earlier. So instead of taking the 5 that were required, it's only 3, but it's important to remember. So for systems that are sampling quarterly or annually, remember to take, if you have a hit, that's why you can always call me, we can talk about it, and I'll remind you, if you don't already know, to take that those 3 distribution samples the month after, or it will end up being a compliance issue. Okay, this is just basic knowledge here. If any routine sample is TC positive, the system must collect a set of 3 repeat samples within 24 hours of being notified. So I'm not expecting you to get out there within 24 hours of the day the sample was taken. It's 24 hours within being notified by the lab that you had a TC positive distribution hit. And the big change for the RTCRs and the transient non-community water systems taking quarterly routine TC samples no longer must take the 4 repeat samples after a TC positive routine. It's just 3. And here, this identifies where the samples must be taken. So you have the 1 repeat sample from the same tap where the original hit was taken, 1 repeat at a tap within 5 service connections upstream, and again, 1 repeat at a tap within 5 service connections downstream. You may propose alternative repeat sampling sites, but please make that, well, 1, ask us, but also if you do end up going with an alternative repeat sampling site, make sure to make that revision on your sampling plan. Because when we come out to do our sanitary surveys, we will be checking those sampling plans. If a repeat sample is TC positive, the sample must be analyzed for E. coli. And if the sample is E. coli positive, DEP must be notified by the end of the day that the PWS learns of the E. coli positive hit. The PWS must collect another set of 3 repeat samples unless an assessment has been triggered. And that is that change is the PWSs must continue repeat sampling until an assessment has been triggered instead of until microbiological MCL violation occurs. Here's the monitoring plan requirements. So under the total coliform rule, on the left column, you see all the requirements for the sampling plans. And then for revised total coliform rule, on the right, our little new sign there, public notification, E. coli MCL's failure to perform required testing and required for failure to conduct an assessment, and those for community systems that would go on your CCRs, and Liz would help you with that one. Alrighty, here are some situations where your sampling plan must be submitted to us for review and approval. If you have alternative repeat locations, the seasonal systems on reduced monitoring, or GWR dual purpose samples. The two situations where the plan must be approved, seasonal systems on reduced and GWR dual purpose samples. The sampling locations must be representative of water throughout the distribution system. The routine and repeat monitoring locations must be identified and may contain, to use 5 up and down. They must show all applicable groundwater rural monitoring sites. The sample collection schedule. Samples must be collected at regular intervals throughout the month. Systems serving less than or equal to 4,900 may collect all samples on a single day if taken from different sites. The monitoring plan must include locations for your routine samples, the repeat samples, or an SOP that would determine those repeat samples based on the situation. Groundwater rural samples, sampling locations, again for the dual purpose samples, must be noted and approved. Monitoring may take place at a customer's premises or dedicated sampling stations or other designated compliance sampling locations. The assessments and corrective action. An assessment is an evaluation to identify possible defects in the distribution system or sampling practices, any possible sanitary defects. And a sanitary defect is a defect that could provide a pathway for entry of microbial contamination into the distribution system, and it is indicative of failure or imminent failure of a barrier in place. The two levels of assessments based on severity or frequency of problem. You have the level 1 assessment and the level 2 assessment. And we spoke a little bit about the level 1 assessment can be performed by the PWS owner or operator. It's a basic examination of source water, treatment, distribution system, and relevant operational practices. Again, the form is about 2 pages, maybe 1.5 pages. And the triggers for this are PWS is taking less than 40 samples per month. If you have 2 or more TC positive routine or repeat samples in the same month, and for those taking 40 or more, if you have greater than 5% of those samples or TC positive for both routine and repeat samples in the same month, or if you fail to take every required repeat after you've had a TC positive routine or repeat sample. The level 2 assessment is a bit more in depth, and again is about 5 pages. And who can actually conduct this assessment is a little different. And it must be conducted by a party approved by the state, a third party, or the utility where the system has staff or management with the required certification or qualifications specified by the state. The system must also comply with any expedited actions or additional actions required by the state in the case of an E. coli MCL violation. The triggers for the level 2, an E. coli MCL violation, a second level 1 assessment triggered for the system within a 12-month rolling period, and for PWS is conducting annual sampling triggers. Level 1 assessment, PWS is conducting annual sampling if they trigger a second level 1 assessment in 2 consecutive years. Let's see. The PWS must describe on the form for each assessment any defects found, the corrective actions completed, a proposed schedule for any corrective actions not already completed, and they must submit the assessment form to the DEP within 30 days after learning that the assessment is required. We will review the assessment and consult with the PWS and approve any schedule for corrective action in a case-by-case basis. And the PWS must notify the DEP when each scheduled corrective action is completed. Failure to complete the level 1 assessment or failure to complete the corrective actions that were needed would result in a treatment technique violation. And that would need to be dealt with on your CCR for the community systems a little bit differently. For level 1 assessments, have any of the following occurred prior to the collection of the TC samples? And here's just a list of possible issues that might have led to the total coliform positive sample. Have there been any recent operational changes to the system? Evaluate the sample site, sample protocol. It's all described on the level 1 form. We're currently in process of revising the level 1 form, as it's been a little bit, hasn't been as clear as it could be, so we're trying to make that a little bit better for y'all. Some other things to look at when you're conducting the level 1 assessment. And here for the level 2, here are the things that are evaluated. You might have a pressure loss event, vandalism, somebody broke in, any number of things that might have led to triggering the level 2. Again, the same things to look at here. Oh, I'm not Joe. My name is Joey, but this is his information. If you have any questions, I'm your contact for the Northwest District. I've got a handful of cards out here if you need them, and Dave passed out the contact information sheet. So if you have any questions on the revised total coliform rule, call me and let me know. If you have any questions now, anybody? Nobody? All right. Yeah. Go ahead.
To clarify, if a little system, like a transit system, wants to have annual monitoring, they've got to have either DEP visit every single year or do a level 2 assessment every single year.
That is correct. Yes. So basically, let's say I grant you annual monitoring, you met the requirements. On this day, next year, 2018, you would technically go back to quarterly and would have to repeat the process to maintain annual. Any problem with that?
No, that's
Okay.
good.
Just making sure.
If they're gonna ask you guys to come out to do another assessment, are you gonna be able to go do that? Manpower wise?
If we
We're
are,
not doing assessments for systems to stay on annual monitoring. We don't have the time or manpower to do that.
Okay, but the part was do a level 2 assessment or have the department come visit again.
that's if we are already scheduled to go out for that year. So in the year that we were going to do a sanitary survey, that could take place at the level 2 assessment. So the system wouldn't have to incur that cost.
We would look at it, I'll say this, we would look at it on a case-by-case basis. If we have the manpower and the time to do that at the time, we might look at that. But we have so many, we have about 150 transient non-community systems.
You might explain
Yeah,
that.
we have
You might not have heard the question.
Yeah, well, the question was if, these systems, these transient non-community systems are on annual monitoring, and it comes time for them to re-up for another annual monitoring qualification, they've got to have a level 2 assessment done, or a sanitary survey by the department. Well, the department, our position right now is we just don't have the manpower to come out and inspect and do sanitary surveys for every transient non-community water system that wants to stay on annual bacteria monitoring. I know this doesn't apply to many of you. I think most of us in here are operators at community water systems, but there are obviously some contract operators in here that operate a number of transit non-community systems. So in the event that you are one of those and your owner or representative that you're contracting for wants to stay on annual monitoring, and it's time for that re-up to get another either level 2 assessment or sanitary survey, contact our office, and if we can't do it, we'll tell you that, and we'll tell you what you can do to get that done, and that may be a level 2 assessment. It's probably going to be a level 2 assessment. It would have to be. That's the only way you can do it. If it's not a sanitary survey, it's going to have to be a level 2 assessment performed by a qualified person. And that was my question,
Yeah, I was
Joe,
gonna-
about the level 2. Who qualifies for level 2 assessments?
Basically, to do a level 2 assessment, to conduct it, you either have to be a professional engineer that's licensed in the state of Florida, a licensed drinking water operator who's qualified to be the system's chief operator, or any licensed operator if the system has no chief operator requirement, and a Florida Rural Water Association circuit rider, or obviously the DEP if we happen to come out for a sanitary survey.
And this annual monitoring only applies to transient non-community systems. I can't think of many transient non-community systems that require anything more than a D operator. D as in dog operator. No, it's not a good way to say it.
Yeah.
How many D operators do you have?
D as in diamond. Thank you, Dave. That's what I meant to say.
D as in Dave.
So it could be just the D operator, the D diamond operator that could do your level 2 assessment to stay on annual monitoring.
I like that. Any other questions?
I was going to make one comment. Like Joey said, we are in the middle of redoing the RTCR level 1 and level 2 assessment forms. We've been getting input from the field offices. We've been working on it up at the state office, and we're about to send it back out to the field offices. But they're not as short as he's saying, because we're trying to make them very user-friendly, and we're also trying to make them give plenty of room for comments, because the offices have asked for that. So the level 1 itself is already 4 pages.
Yeah, okay.
So, but it's
That'll be a
going to
little-
be like check boxes.
It'll be a lot easier to read.
Oh, yeah,
I
ours,
imagine.
right now, you have to have a magnifying glass.
Yeah, they're a little bit different. All right.
Joe, you mentioned dual sampling.
Yes.
Could you expound on that?
The dual sampling, that is for if you have a triggered source water water quality monitoring issue. So basically, those dual samples, so it's going to count for your groundwater rule, but it's also going to count for your for the source monitoring, and then you have distribution samples. Those have to be approved and identified on your sampling plan. And those we don't really, it's not something we come across very
Very,
often.
very rare. We were talking about that on the way over. That's kind of a tricky thing. Yeah, dual sampling, it applies to where the sample will take care of both your groundwater rule and your revised total coliform rule sample. We don't see that very often
Ever, yeah. So,
yet.
yes. Thanks.
Thank you, Joey, I appreciate it. Told you it'd be the star of the show. Hey, when you mentioned the part about another operator at the same level to do the level 2 assessment, one of the things is the person that did the level 1 can't do the level 2.
That's a good point.
So if you, let's say you're a B facility and you only have one B operator, another B operator could do the level 2 assessment, but not the same one that did the first one. It's probably an opportunity for systems to help each other. So an operator from another system at that level may be able to come in and do the level 2 assessment. The reason for that is you're trying to look for sanitary defects, and another set of eyes may really help you find that and correct it. Okay. Oh, you got a question for me?
Yeah, I thought it says a third party, staff, somebody on staff in that system could not do it level two. Is that right?
No, another operator from another system
But
could
not-
do it.
Not somebody that works for that.
No, let's say you're a B facility, and you have two B operators, okay? The B operator could do the level 1 assessment, the other B operator could do the level 2.
So
It's
somebody
just not the same person, but it's gotta be somebody at the highest level at your plant.
Different set of eyes.
Different set of eyes. I was trying to clarify, did I confuse the situation? Probably wouldn't be the first time. Okay. All right, we're gonna switch gears and we're gonna do asset management, and we have one of your own to do that. Ben Lewis is gonna do asset management. And I'll get his presentation up.
You mean by one of your own?
Yeah. I don't think any of them claim me anymore. All right. Can y'all hear me back there? Good, good. Too loud, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I begged him to give y'all a break. He said no, that I would be too riveted and you guys would want to hear me all day, so let's see how that goes. Just remember on that little blue survey that you get out, make sure you put a 5 on that because I am the one that takes your CEUs back to the office, so.
Now that's bribing them.
So make sure.
You'll
All right.
or off.
It doesn't matter to me. I don't need it.
You'll be in the dark.
I'm in the dark all my life. We're going to talk a little bit about asset management. Asset management, you know, makes you cringe a little bit sometimes on both sides of the house. One of the definitions is a process for maintaining the desired level of customer service at the best appropriate cost. Of course, we all, I just pulled a Ken and turned it off. We all want to try to give our people the service that they're, you know, the best service we can for the least amount of money. Same way with your customers. They want the best water that you can give them for the least amount of money. So, but one of the biggest things that we have to do is we have to get out of the mentality that we run things to a failure. I mean, that's the way we are. You know, we put something in, we put a piece of equipment in, we want to run it until it breaks down. And then we figure out, okay, well, we got to replace it. How are we going to replace it? All right. So then you're going and trying to find, do I apply for an SRF grant? Do I go to CDBG? Do I go get a loan? Hopefully you have some reserve. I say reserve, and usually most everybody laughs. You try to put a little bit of money away, and of course, if you know once that money gets put away, it usually gets pulled out of that fund. So, as most people, as we know, our infrastructure, most of our water lines and things like that is out of sight, out of mind, right? So, you don't put that money back into it, and they say, well, we'd rather just paint the town or plant some trees or, you know, make sure that building looks good for whoever comes through this town. But you gotta have that money. You gotta have it set aside to maintain your assets. Some of the things that in an asset management plan is the condition of the assessment, criticality, the consequences of the failure of that piece of equipment. How critical is that piece of equipment to your system? And if it fails, what's the consequence of failure? Preventive maintenance, we usually are again, whenever it breaks, we'll fix it. But we have to get into that preventive maintenance, make sure that we change the oil, we do the things, we grease it, we do the things ahead of time that we're supposed to do. What we're trying to do is to change the utility's focus from building and operating systems to actually managing assets. It's going to improve, if you can get into that mindset, it's going to improve your ability to extend the asset life, optimize your maintenance, develop strategic long-term funding plans, and also sustain long-term performance. That's just showing you some of the pipes, and I'm sure some systems probably already have that, if not more. If you've got any kind of iron pipe, you're going to have percolation build up in that pipe. I can show you some pictures of a lot of that pipe there that came out of some systems even up in this panhandle. I wasn't naming you because Everybody knows where I live now, so. The condition and criticality assessment, when we come out, we try to do a condition and criticality, or you do it yourself. You're going to do a complete inventory. You want to do an inventory from your wells all the way out to your meters. All right, and then you're going to give them a number, a condition number. The higher the number is the higher the maintenance or the repair needs. So if the valve, you've got a valve here, of course you can see there's a 5-gallon bucket under it. They figure, well, it's not leaking quite enough yet, so we'll catch that water and use it for flushing the toilets. If that valve is critical, then you're going to have a higher rating on it. If it's redundant, then you would put a lower number on there. Okay, if you can bypass that valve, or if you could, use another valve or another way, then you would put a lower number on it. Same thing with your criticality. Yeah, I get it. You want, if it's critical to your need, you're going to do the same thing. It's going to have you're going to give it a high number. Will the failure affect the entire system? Right. If you've got a pressure switch and it goes out, is it going to have a drastic need or a drastic damage to your system, or is it something that you can replace pretty quickly? If it's something that's going to take you a few days or a week to get, then it's probably something that you might want to try to either have on hand or get to where you can get it. Okay. Usually if you have two higher numbers when you're doing your assessment, then it's going to probably mean that piece of equipment is highly critical and it's probably in poor condition. It also will alert you as you go out and do these assessments. It's going to alert you to the greatest needs in your system. What type of PM and then what type of priority level. This tank is actually, it's a tank in Missouri, and it was actually built in 1999. But I'd say it's probably got a little bit of work to be done here. Sprung a leak. I think that's where they might shower. The next one, that's a good looking tank. I don't know how we got our logo up there, but it's a good looking tank. A tank, basically you just want to make sure, as you can see, maybe you could see, there's a lot of antennas up here. A lot of systems now are leasing out their tanks for antennas and things like that for a little extra money, which is great, but you want to make sure in that maintenance fee or maintenance agreement that they take care of removing that whenever you need those tanks cleaned and painted and taken care of, and it doesn't do any damage to it. Of course, we all know that you should inspect your tanks annually, but they are required every 5 years, signed off by PE. A storage tank is usually has a useful life of about 30 to 60 years. This tank here was built in 1974, so it still has about 20 years left or so. And we go through this, and some of you are going to say, well, useful life, but I've got a tank that's 80 years old. Well, if you take care of it, then it may last you 80 years. But there are certain pieces of equipment, the older it is, the less efficient it is. So, and we'll go through that when we see these next few pictures. Just showing you a little rust here. It's not a whole lot of problems with this except for surface rust. You want to take care of that, make sure that you inspect them and get them cleaned and taken care of. The physical sustainability part of the asset management is also looking at the physical side of the house, accounting and financial planning, asset maintenance and repair and replacement. Are you going to repair it? Are you going to replace it? How much is it going to cost you to repair it and replace it tomorrow? Where do I get the money to do that? You're also going to be looking at your system, the growth of it. How far out am I going to grow any? Is the system coming back? For a few years there, we were building out hot and heavy. Everybody was growing, and then all of a sudden it just shut. Well, it's coming back, so you need to know where your systems are going to be at. Can they handle that? And then adequate emergency reserves. Again, having that money put into that fund and having it there so when you need it, and you just gotta smack that hand every now and then when it gets tried to pull out of it, you know, for something else. Again, the physical sustainability it's an accurate and timely capital improvement needs for your budgeting, operation and maintenance budgeting. How many people in here deal with budgets? How many of you help prepare it? All right. If you've ever prepared a budget and you brought it to your director or to your council and you got it back, how many times was it exactly the way you brought it to them? Not too many times. Sometimes it is if you've got a good board, but a lot of times you're going to see it's going to get hacked to pieces. So you've got to be able to involve your staff, and the staff has to have a good relationship and know, communicate what is needed. A physical sustainability asset management plan helps that system to efficiently and effectively identify capital improvement plans. That's what you want to do, is be able to identify where your problems are and where your needs are and how am I going to fund it. The Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, your SRF, if you go to apply for a loan from them, they're going to probably refer you to FRWA Water for an asset management plan. During that time, they may also, when we do this asset management plan, they may also find other projects